Ever wonder what happens when humans think they can outsmart nature? Spoiler, it doesn't end well. Back in the day, Yellowstone National Park was wolf country. These top predators ruled the wild, keeping everything in check. But when settlers moved west, they saw wolves as dangerous rivals. By the early 1900s, the campaign to wipe them out was in full swing. Hunters laid traps, fired bullets, and even used poison. By 1926, the last Yellowstone wolf was gone. Why? Wolves sometimes preyed on livestock, and ranchers demanded their elimination. To people back then, getting rid of wolves looked like a victory. But what they didn't realize was that pulling one piece out of nature's puzzle would topple the whole thing. Without wolves, elk populations exploded. With no predators chasing them, the herds grew huge and bold, munching down meadows and riverbanks without pause. Willows, cottonwoods, and aspen, plants that once lined Yellowstone's streams, were stripped bare. And that wasn't just bad for trees, it set off a chain reaction. No willows meant less shade and weaker riverbanks. Soil crumbled and slid into the water, causing erosion that turned clear streams into muddy trickles. Beavers, who depend on willows and aspen for both food and building materials, disappeared. With no beaver dams to slow the flow, rivers rushed too quickly, making life harder for fish that needed calm, cool waters for spawning. Even bears lost out. No shrubs meant no berries, and no berries meant less food before hibernation. In short, Yellowstone had lost its balance. What looked like freedom for the elk turned into chaos for the entire ecosystem. By the 1990s, scientists and conservationists realized the park was in trouble. The answer? Bring back the wolves. So in 1995, 31 gray wolves from Canada were carefully released into Yellowstone. At first, it was controversial. Ranchers worried about their cattle, and some feared wolves would become a threat again. But nature had been waiting for its missing piece. The wolves got to work. They hunted elk, not to wipe them out, but to keep them moving. No longer could elk linger in one place, stripping every last willow shoot. With grazing pressure reduced, plants rebounded. Willows and aspens rose again along the riverbanks, stabilizing soil and bringing shade to the streams. The beavers returned, building dams that created ponds and wetlands. These wetlands slowed rivers, filtered water, and gave fish cozy new homes. Waterfowl, amphibians, and insects flourished. Even bears benefited, enjoying both elk carcasses left by wolves and the returning berry bushes. This ripple effect, called a trophic cascade, transformed Yellowstone. By simply reintroducing wolves, the entire ecosystem healed in ways scientists had only hoped for. Today, Yellowstone stands as one of the world's most famous conservation success stories, all because a predator once hunted to extinction was given a second chance. The lesson: sometimes saving nature isn't about adding something new, but about restoring what should have been there all along. But on the other side of the world, in Australia, a very different story was unfolding. In the 1800s, settlers brought red foxes for sport hunting. At first it seemed like fun, but the results were a disaster. Foxes were clever, lightning-fast hunters, and Australia's native animals had no idea how to deal with them. Bilbies, bandicoots, bettongs, and even little quokkas started vanishing. Some were wiped out completely, while others clung on in tiny numbers. The balance was shattered, and it wasn't just the prey animals that suffered. Foxes pushed out native hunters like quolls, and without marsupials to dig and turn the soil, the land itself began to change. Plants struggled, and ecosystems lost the little gardeners that once kept everything healthy. Sure, foxes ate rabbits too, but that didn't make up for the destruction. Australia fought back with fences, poison bait, and shooting, but foxes were everywhere, on farms, in cities, even deep in the outback. Unlike Yellowstone's wolves, which healed a broken system, foxes broke one that had thrived for millions of years. They became one of the greatest threats to Australia's unique wildlife, a mistake that can never be fully undone. In the late 19th century, Hawaii's sugarcane plantations were plagued by rats that devoured crops, threatening the livelihoods of plantation owners. Seeking a solution, they turned to the mongoose, a small predator with a reputation for hunting rodents. Inspired by its success in Jamaica, 72 mongooses were imported from the Caribbean and released into Hawaii's fields in 1883. The idea was simple: unleash the mongooses and let them wipe out the rats. But the plan quickly unraveled. While mongooses did eat some rats, they found easier targets in Hawaii's native birds, their eggs, and small reptiles. A critical flaw doomed the effort. Mongooses are diurnal, active during the day, while rats are nocturnal, active at night. Instead of controlling the rat population, the mongooses ravaged the island's unique wildlife, contributing to the decline and extinction of species like the Hawaiian rail and the Nene goose. With no natural predators, the mongooses multiplied and spread, becoming a menace. Today, the mongoose is an invasive species in Hawaii, and efforts continue to protect native ecosystems from its impact. This failed experiment is a stark lesson in biological control. Introducing a species can spark unintended chaos far worse than the original problem. Imagine giant snakes taking over Florida's swamps. Burmese pythons, originally from Southeast Asia, slithered into the Everglades after pet owners set them free in the 1980s. Some say Hurricane Andrew in 1992 smashed a breeding facility, unleashing more. Now up to 300,000 of these monsters, some 20 feet long, rule the wild. They're so sneaky, experts can't even count them properly. These pythons are eating everything. Raccoons down 99%, opossums, even alligators. One time, park workers cut open an 18-foot python and found a 5-foot gator inside. Wild, right? With no enemies and females laying up to 100 eggs, they've trashed the ecosystem. Marsh rabbits, gone. Birds, dropping fast. The Everglades went quiet as these silent hunters gobbled up the wildlife. Florida's fighting back with cool tricks. The Python Challenge pays hunters cash for catches. The biggest ever was 19 feet, weighing 164 pounds with 87 eggs. They used traps, drones, and Judas snakes with trackers to find the females. In 2024, a new infrared camera system started spotting their shiny scales at night. The state banned owning them as pets in 2021, but it's tough. They swim, hide, and keep spreading north. Will they hit Georgia next? Climate change might help them. It's a slithery showdown, and Florida's racing to save its wild side. In the late 19th century, rabbits were brought to Australia for hunting purposes, but they soon spiraled out of control. With no natural predators and ideal breeding conditions, they multiplied rapidly, devastating crops and native vegetation. By 1901, the Australian government launched an ambitious solution, the rabbit-proof fence. Stretching over 1,800 miles, it was designed to protect Western Australia's farmland from the rabbit invasion and became one of the longest fences ever built. The idea seemed solid, build a barrier to stop the rabbits in their tracks. However, nature had other plans. The rabbits bred so quickly that many had already crossed into the protected zones before the fence was even finished in 1907. They also outmaneuvered it by digging underneath, slipping through gaps, or in some cases, climbing over. By the time construction wrapped up, the rabbits were already thriving on the other side, treating farmland like an endless feast. While the fence slowed, the rabbit spread slightly. It was far from a success. Maintaining it proved nearly impossible, with sand drifts and erosion constantly undermining its structure. Eventually, the government abandoned the fence as a primary defense and turned to alternatives like the myxoma virus, which proved more effective but sparked its own debates. Today, remnants of the rabbit-proof fence stand as a testament to human ingenuity and a reminder that nature often has the last laugh. Lesson learned: even the grandest barriers can't stop a determined rabbit. Imagine releasing a bunch of toads to save your crops, only to watch them take over the country. That's exactly what happened in Australia with the cane toad introduction. In 1935, the cane toad, native to Central and South America, was brought to Australia to control the cane beetle, a pest damaging sugarcane crops. But the toads had no interest in the beetles and instead found other food sources, thriving in their new environment. Cane toads reproduce at an alarming rate, with females laying up to 30,000 eggs at a time. Their tadpoles outcompete native frogs, and the adult toads are toxic to predators, secreting a lethal poison when threatened. This has led to significant declines in native wildlife, such as the northern quoll and goannas, which die after trying to eat the toads. Control efforts, like community toad-busting events and research into biological controls, have struggled to keep up with the toads' rapid spread. They've even hitched rides on vehicles, reaching remote areas like the Kimberley. Today, cane toads infest northern and eastern Australia, and their range keeps expanding. It's a cautionary tale about the perils of introducing non-native species, and a reminder that nature doesn't always follow human plans. It's 1958 in China, and Mao Zedong's got a beef with sparrows. These tiny, chirpy birds were munching grain, and Mao wanted every last seed for people. "Let's get rid of them," he shouted, kicking off the Great Sparrow campaign. It was part of his 4 pests hit list: sparrows, rats, flies, and mosquitoes. Everyone joined the battle: farmers, kids, even grandmas. The plan? Make noise, tons of it. People grabbed pots, banged drums, and yelled until sparrows couldn't land. The poor birds flapped and flapped until they fell out of the sky, pooped from flying too long. Kids zapped them with slingshots, smashed nests, and stomped eggs. Boom, 600 million sparrows gone by 1960. Mao threw a party until the real trouble crashed in. With no sparrows snacking on bugs, locusts went bonkers. These hoppy monsters chowed down crops like a buffet, way worse than sparrows ever did. Fields turned to dust, food vanished, and a giant famine hit. Millions of people starved, 15 to 45 million, all because of a bird-brained idea. Mao had to sneak sparrows back from Russia to fix his mess. Now sparrows are back, chirping like, "Told you so." Dingoes are Australia's wild dogs, and they've been causing trouble for farmers since people brought sheep and cows here over 200 years ago. Dingoes like to eat livestock, so farmers fight back. They built the dingo fence, over 5,600 kilometers long, to keep dingoes away from their animals. That's longer than the Great Wall of China. How cool is that? Nowadays, people use poison, called 1080, traps and guns to stop dingoes. In Queensland, you have to control them by law, no letting them loose. In Victoria, you can even get $120 for each dingo you catch. But here's a surprise: killing them doesn't always work. Experts say if you break up dingo families, the leftover ones get sneaky and attack more animals. Some people have fun new ideas, like using big guard dogs to scare dingoes off or building strong fences. Victoria's trying this out with $2 million in 2024 and even banned killing dingoes in some places. Why? Dingoes aren't all bad. They help nature by chasing away foxes, cats, and too many kangaroos. Plus, they're special to Australia. Dingoes are mixing with pet dogs, and their numbers are shrinking. Imagine a bird invasion started by a Shakespeare fan. In 1890, a guy named Eugene Schieffelin let loose 60 European starlings in New York's Central Park. Why? He wanted all the birds from Shakespeare's plays to live in America. Pretty weird, right? Those 60 birds took off like crazy. Today, over 200 million starlings swarm North America from Canada to Mexico. Starlings are tough little guys with shiny black feathers and loud chirps. They eat anything, bugs, fruit, even garbage, and love wide open spaces like farms and cities. After their big release, they spread fast. By 1900, they hit Ohio, by 1920, the Mississippi River, and by the 1950s, the West Coast. They flew, bred, and pushed out other birds, snagging nests from woodpeckers and bluebirds with their bossy attitudes. Farmers aren't fans. Starlings gobble crops like grapes and cherries, costing millions. In cities, their giant flocks, called murmurations, look cool, but leave poop everywhere. One wild fact: in 1960, a flock crashed into a plane in Boston, causing it to wreck and kill 62 people. The US tried traps, poison, even loud noises to stop them, but starlings keep winning. Still, they're not all bad. They eat pesky insects, helping some farmers. Love them or hate them, these Shakespeare birds turned a small release into a continent-wide takeover. No turning back now. New Zealand's got a wild plan: wipe out stoats and possums by 2050 to save its birds. These pesky invaders showed up centuries ago. Possums in 1837 for fur, stoats in the 1880s to chase rabbits. Now, they're eating machines, munching 25 million native birds yearly, like the kiwi and kakapo. The government's predator-free 2050 mission is like a moonshot, huge and a bit nuts. Possums, cute but deadly, number around 30 million. They strip trees bare and spread cow tuberculosis, costing farms big time. Stoats, sneaky weasels, are bird-killing pros. Up to 95% of kiwi chicks don't survive where they roam. Last year, one stoat on Te Kakahu Island took $300,000 and 8 months to catch. They've already wiped out birds like the laughing owl. The fight's on with traps, poison drops, like 1080 from helicopters, and even smart tech, drones and self-resetting traps that zap pests with CO2 power. Volunteers check backyards, and places like Wellington's Miramar Peninsula are testing city-wide wipeouts. Success stories? Tons of offshore islands are pest-free, and native birds are singing again. But it's tough. Stoats swim, possums climb, and both breed fast. Some say it'll cost billions, maybe $16 billion, and a few sneaky survivors could ruin it all. Still, Kiwis are all in. Farmers, kids, even hunters, because losing their birds means losing a piece of who they are. Will it work? No one's sure, but they're giving it a go. Sea lampreys are freaky fish that invaded the Great Lakes over 100 years ago, sneaking in through shipping canals from the Atlantic Ocean. These slimy vampires latch onto fish with their toothy, suction-cup mouths and suck out blood and fluids, killing up to 40 pounds of fish each in their lifetime. Back in the 1940s, they trashed the fishery, dropping lake trout catches from 15 million pounds a year to just 300,000. That's when the US and Canada teamed up in 1955 to create the Great Lakes Fishery Commission to fight back. Their big weapon? A chemical called TFM, sprayed into streams where lamprey babies, larvae, hide. It zaps them before they grow up to munch on fish, and it's been a game changer, cutting lamprey numbers by 90%. Fun fact, they tested 6,000 chemicals to find TFM. They also use traps and barriers, like mini dams, to stop adult lampreys from swimming upstream to lay eggs. One female can pop out 100,000 eggs, so every catch counts. But it's not all smooth sailing. During COVID, fewer treatments let lamprey numbers spike in 2024, and it costs $20 million a year to keep them in check, worth it for the $7 billion fishery they protect. Cool twist, they're now testing drones and stinky pheromones to trick lampreys into traps. From millions of fish killers to a controlled pest, it's a wild success story, but the battle's not over. Locusts are like nature's lawnmowers gone wild. Swarms can eat enough crops in a day to feed 35,000 people. Farmers and governments have been battling them forever, and the fight's full of cool tricks and tough challenges. In East Africa, they've faced crazy outbreaks, like Kenya's worst in 70 years back in 2020. To stop them, people spray pesticides from planes and trucks, sometimes using stuff like 1080 poison or even banned chemicals like chlorpyrifos. It works fast but can hurt bees, birds, and fish too. One swarm there can have 50 million locusts. In India, they've tried blasting locusts with drones since 2020, high-tech pest control. Meanwhile, Tunisia just fought off locusts from Libya in 2025 with quick pesticide drops and scout teams. Old school moves. Farmers used to dig trenches, burn fields, or bash locusts with sticks. Wild, right? Now, science is stepping up. A biopesticide called metarhizium kills locusts slow but safe. And in Somalia, they sprayed tons of it in 2020. Feral cats in Australia are like silent ninjas, cute but deadly. These fluffy invaders, left behind by settlers over 200 years ago, now number up to 6 million. They hunt like champs, killing over 2 billion animals a year. Think birds, lizards, and even tiny kangaroos. Experts say they've wiped out 25 native mammals, like the desert bandicoot, since they arrived. That's why Australia's on a mission to stop them. The big plan kicked off in 2015. Get rid of 2 million feral cats by 2020. How? Traps, poison baits, like sausage-shaped Eradicat laced with 1080, and sharpshooters. In some spots, like Kangaroo Island, they've used cat-sniffing dogs to track them down. Pretty clever, right? Fences are popping up too. Huge ones, like the 44-kilometer wall at New Haven, keeping cats out so bilbies and wallabies can bounce back. Fun fact, one cat-free island saw birds triple in 5 years. But it's tricky. Cats breed fast, up to 15 kittens a year, and roam huge areas. Plus, pet lovers hate the killing, even though pet cats aren't the target. In 2024, drones started dropping baits in tough spots, and scientists are testing gene drives to stop kittens from being born. It's a $30 million fight yearly, and while 1.2 million cats were culled by 2023, natives like the night parrot are singing again. Still, with cats everywhere, it's a claws-out battle down under. Carp are like the uninvited guests who wrecked Australia's waterways. These slimy fish brought from Europe over 100 years ago were meant to be a tasty treat. Instead, they turned into a nightmare. Released in the 1900s, like the tough Boolarra strain in the 1960s, they exploded across the Murray-Darling Basin, especially after big floods in the 1970s. Now, up to 375 million carp clog rivers, making up 90% of the fish in some spots. They're messy eaters, sucking up mud and spitting it out, turning clear water cloudy. This kills plants that native fish need and stirs up trouble. costing Australia up to $500 million a year in ruined fishing spots and farm fixes. Fun fact, one female carp can lay 1 million eggs. No wonder they're everywhere except the Northern Territory. The fight's on with the National Carp Control Plan. They're testing a herpes virus to zap carp without hurting other fish. Imagine millions of carp floating belly up. In 2024, drones and traps joined the battle, and Tasmania even cleared carp from a lake. But it's a tough gig. Floods help carp spread and cleanup's a stinky mess. Nutria control, US. Nutria, giant rodents from South America, invaded the US over 100 years ago, brought for their fur. When the fur trade flopped in the 1940s, thousands escaped or were dumped. Now they're everywhere, from Louisiana swamps to California rivers. These orange-toothed beasts up to 20 pounds chew through marshes, crops, and even levees. In Louisiana alone, they've trashed over 100,000 acres of wetlands, making storms worse by wrecking natural barriers. The US fights back hard. In Maryland, they wiped out nutria from the Chesapeake Bay by 2022. 20 years of traps, dogs, and tracking gizmos did the trick, saving 250,000 acres. Louisiana pays hunters $6 per tail. Over 2 million have been nabbed since 2002, but millions still roam. California's on alert too. Nearly 1,000 caught in 2024 as they sneak into the Delta water system. Fun fact, one female can pop out 27 babies a year. Control's a wild mix, poison, traps, and shooting, sometimes with spotlights at night, where it's legal. They've tried weird stuff too, like luring them with nutria stink, pheromones, or zapping them with drones. Some say, eat them, they taste like rabbit. The feds pump $12 million yearly into this via the Nutria Eradication Act, but it's a tough gig. Nutria dig, swim, and breed like crazy, threatening fish, birds, and farms nationwide. Red imported fire ant control, US. Red imported fire ants, RIFA, invaded the US from South America in the 1930s, stowing away in ship cargo to Alabama. Now, they've conquered over 350 million acres, mostly the South, from Texas to Florida, even sneaking into California. These little devils sting hard, leaving itchy, burning welts, and rack up $8 billion in trouble yearly. Think ruined crops, vet bills, they attack pets, and chewed up wires. In Texas, they munch through $140 million in traffic lights alone. The US fights back with cool moves. Poison baits like extinguish get sprinkled from planes or tossed by hand. Ants eat it, share it, and boom, whole colonies collapse. Traps nab the queens. Each pumps out 1,500 eggs daily, so she's the big prize. Some folks pour boiling water or even gas on mounds. Not super safe though. Fun fact, one ant can sting you 5 times in a row. High-tech helps too. Drones drop baits and tagged spy ants lead hunters to hidden nests. Nature's got tricks up its sleeve. Flies from Brazil chop off ant heads and a funky fungus turns them into mush. But wiping them out? Tough stuff. They float on water during floods and hitchhike on trucks. Still, places like Tennessee keep them at bay with quick action, showing these fiery pests can be tamed with grit and smarts. In 1932, Australian farmers in the Wheatbelt region faced a bizarre enemy: emus. After a drought, around 20,000 of these large, flightless birds invaded farmland, eating crops and smashing fences, which let rabbits wreak even more havoc. Exasperated farmers, many of whom were World War I veterans, pleaded for government help. Defense Minister Sir George Pearce obliged, deploying soldiers with Lewis machine guns to wipe out the emu menace. It sounded like a straightforward mission. How hard could it be to shoot some birds? The reality was a fiasco. On November 2nd, Major G.P.W. Meredith led the first attack near Campion. Spotting 50 emus, the soldiers opened fire, but the birds were too far and scattered instantly. Later attempts near waterholes failed too. The emus ran at speeds up to 30 miles per hour, dodging bullets with ease. In one embarrassing moment, a jammed gun let 1,000 emus escape unscathed. After a week, 2,500 rounds had been fired, yet only 50 to 200 emus were downed. Meredith marveled at their toughness, joking they could outlast any army. By November 8th, the military retreated, mocked by newspapers calling it a war against feathered foes. The emus kept eating crops, victorious. The Great Emu War became a legendary flop. A funny, humbling reminder that nature doesn't bow to human firepower. With that, we conclude our video today. Which of these human-made mistakes do you think should have been avoided? Let us know in the comments below and make sure to subscribe to our channel. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.